Hi, it's Type1Cat, and today I'll be talking about surfing. So how did I even get into surfing? Well, when I was running marathons for 2 years, I ended up in a lot of pain, and I found out that I had a labrum tear in one of my hips. And exercise has been a part of my diabetes and blood sugar management regimen for many years, and I was really heartbroken. I loved long distance running, but I had to find something different, and I got into cycling and trail running. I still trail run and road run for short distances and much less frequently, but did other sports, swimming as well, and then got into surfing. I was actually kind of scared of the water, even though I grew up snorkeling and swimming, just really stayed away from it for many years, but swimming, being confident in swimming, I'll let that plane pass, and getting more confident in the water led me to being more comfortable surfing. And I found out that surfing was just such a fun and great form of exercise, and now I consider it my main sport. So how I prepare for any type of exercise really depends on the intensity and, of course, the type of insulin regimen I'm on. Like I mentioned in my last video, I started the Omnipod insulin pump because I wanted to adjust my basal rates for long distance running. And normally I might decrease my basal by around 50%, lowering my basal by 50% for runs, and of course it depends on the speed, it depends on how long I'm going, and if there's elevation gain, the intensity of it. For swimming, I usually kind of take it easy, so I might decrease by 20 to 30%. For surfing, if it is an easy day, maybe 30%. If it's a more strenuous day, I decrease by about 40%. Now, if I were on multiple daily injections, I may decrease my prior basal insulin shot by 1 or 2 units if I know for sure that I'm going to be working out the next day or within the next 12 to 24 hours. And that's the same with alcohol. When I was on multiple daily injections, I would sometimes adjust my basal if I would be drinking alcohol, because both exercise and alcohol puts you more at risk for hypoglycemia for the next 12 to 24 hours. Now, if I were on a tubed pump and there would be no insulin being delivered while I'm out in the water, I would probably make sure that I don't have a lot of insulin on board or any insulin on board, so I wouldn't have corrected or bolused within the past couple of hours. Of course, that's not always easy to do, and depending on where I'm starting, I may bolus, or I may suspend half an hour to an hour ahead of time, and that's only if I'm going to be in the water for 45 minutes to an hour. So again, if I'm on a tubed pump and I'm disconnecting completely, I may bolus right before if I'm at a good maybe 0.1 or 0.2 units, because I'm going to be disconnected for about an hour or so. I'll let that plane pass as well. Depending on the type of insulin you're using, if you're using an ultra rapid acting or rapid acting, that can last for anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. It also depends on your own metabolism, but usually we see dangerous rise in blood sugar levels within about 2 hours of being without insulin. So I really don't feel comfortable being without insulin or suspending, like disconnecting or suspending my insulin pump for more than like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It just increases risk for diabetic ketoacidosis, and of course if you're on a medication like an SGLT2 inhibitor, that puts you more at risk and is dehydrating. If you have an illness or dehydrated for any other reason, these are things that you would really want to be careful about. So another thing that I do to prepare for exercise is when I'm adjusting my basal, going back to, I am on a tubeless pump, so I am able to deliver insulin while I'm out on the water, disconnected from any of the CGM controller devices. It's still delivering a basal rate. I usually start adjusting half an hour to an hour ahead of time. I make sure that my blood sugar is in a comfortable range for me. That's around 100 to 110. And of course, I'm letting all of my friends know that I have diabetes, and they know the symptoms of hypoglycemia. One of the things that's a little scary about being in the water is that it kind of masks the symptoms of hypoglycemia. For example, if you're paddling really hard, your heart might already be racing, but heart racing is a symptom of hypoglycemia. Or sweating profusely, that's also a symptom of hypoglycemia. So sometimes you can't really tell because you're already sweating, if you're on land because you're working out, or you're in the water and you're already wet. So sometimes, a lot of planes in this area. Sometimes my friends can tell me that I look a little dazed or confused, and they can see that I'm going hypo before I even notice. By the time I notice that I'm hypo in the water, it's a little scary, and it depends on how rough the surf is or how far away I am from shore, because I might not have enough energy to come in. That's never happened before, but I have started to panic when I thought that I might not have enough energy. So I do carry glucose tabs in a key pouch or any easily accessible waterproof container, and I stick it in my wetsuit. I also usually try to come in every hour or so. I used to stay out for 3 hours without checking my blood sugar, but now I try to come in every hour, every 1.5 hours to reconnect to my CGM. I usually keep it in a lockbox nearby, or check my blood sugar manually. And we don't always listen to my dad, but my dad always tells me and my friends, because he used to surf, to study the waves for about 10 minutes prior to going out. And the Australian Bureau of Meteorology has a little chart that talks about wave height. And there's the average wave height at the time. There's significant waves, which are about 14% bigger, and they're about every 1 to 7 waves. And then there's the maximum wave height, which is double, I believe, the significant wave height, and those waves come through, they're saying, about every three times in 24 hours. So that's the thing about surfing that's a little bit different than a land activity, because if you know the route, the trail, whatever, where the elevation gain is, you can stop, you can slow down. But in the water, sometimes it's hard to slow down because you're at the mercy of the ocean. And so when athletes talk about leaving it all on the table, giving it your all, not leaving anything in the tank, I really don't recommend that for surfing, because you don't want to end up in a dangerous situation where you don't have the energy to get back to shore. So So yes, those are the things to keep in mind. Like I said, I usually decrease by maybe 50% of my basal. It's another plane. My basal by 50% if I'm running or hiking and there's a lot of elevation gain, and maybe 30 to 40% for surfing, 20 to 30% for swimming. And yeah, I think that's it for today. If you have any other topics you'd like me to talk about, drop me a comment and follow for more. I'll see you next time.